Hi, my name's Phil. I like to come out politics. So, will Labour back entering a customs union with the EU in this Parliament, which would break the manifesto promise, or will they put it in their next manifesto for 2029? We may have an inkling based on a response from Keir Starmer to Ed Davey at PMQs today. Although first, I will just draw attention to my prediction for PMQs when I was asked for it in my Twitch stream last night. Like to hear your prediction on PMQs topics tomorrow. Anything of note? Hoping Trump comes up. Trump will come up from Ed Davey. I will confidently predict that.
Mr. Speaker, President Trump's new national security strategy is a deeply alarming document. Quite apart from the irony of President Trump accusing others of trampling on basic principles of democracy, it repeats far-right tropes of civilizational erasure and threatens that the US government will cultivate resistance in Europe. No wonder Vladimir Putin has welcomed that strategy. So will the Prime Minister pick up the phone and make it clear to President Trump that any attempts to interfere with our democracy are totally unacceptable?
He will ask a question on Trump in terms of his nonsense this week. And Starmer will offer a non-answer, is what I will also confidently predict.
On the question of Europe and President Trump's comments, what I see is a strong Europe, united behind Ukraine and united behind our long-standing values of freedom and democracy, and I will always stand up for those values and those freedoms.
And Davey.
Mr. Speaker, I didn't hear about standing up to President Trump.
I will acknowledge, however, that I completely messed up my predictions for Badenoch's question, so my stargazing needs work. I also failed to win the Euro Millions last night. Someone in Belgium grabbed the lot, apparently. But Starmer was never going to be able to address David's first question directly. There's this thing called diplomacy, which Trump may not respect, but we kind of have to. But I think we may have gotten a more useful answer for David's second question.
If we're going to stand up to President Trump, we do need to strengthen our ties with Europe, not just on defence, but on the economy too. And the truth is, this government will not succeed unless it gets our economy growing strongly again. And the best way to do that is a customs union with Europe. The Prime Minister's chief economic advisor knows it. The Deputy Prime Minister knows it, and yesterday the Labour chair of the Treasury Select Committee showed she knows it too when she backed our bill. Does the Prime Minister fear that if he keeps opposing a customs union, in 12 months' time he will not be standing there?
So here's the thing about the customs union. Assuming we could negotiate it quickly and implement it quickly, unlike joining the single market or EU membership, the customs union could be quick and the results immediate. I was discussing last night how the extra £22 billion a year in taxes could be spent. If Labour don't want them for anything else, use like £10 billion a year for extra defence investment and the other £12 billion as a temporary energy transition grant. Labour are pushing to expand our capacity of cheap, secure, clean energy. But it will take a few years and requires upfront investment. In the meantime, although Labour have reduced energy bills, people aren't feeling the cost of living being eased enough yet. So what could you do with a £12 billion extra a year? Well, you could do something that says, well, this is a temporary payment to cover while we make this energy transition. You could do something like this. A £1,000 payment to the 6 million poorest households in the country every single year. Maybe £250 a quarter, something like that to spread it out. Then £650 payments to the next poorest 6 million households. And finally, a £350 payment to the next 6 million. That would be winter fuel style payments of hundreds of pounds to 18 million households out of about 28 million households in the whole of the UK. And it would be on top of payments like the winter fuel payment for those households who also get that. And because it would be targeted at those households on lower incomes with the lowest getting the most, I would say that would ease the cost of living in a way where it's obvious the government is doing it. And I cannot see those voters complaining that a promise got broken to do it. It would also help stimulate those local economies. In addition, it doesn't mean raising taxes on the other 10 million richest households to pay for it. It's basically free money coming from reversing Brexit. At a stroke, you ease the cost of living, you prove how damaging Brexit has been, because look how much money we've suddenly got by reversing a bit of it. Very good counter to Farage, and it leads into then talking about things like the single market. So why won't Starmer do it? Well, here was his answer.
Mr. Speaker, we have got a close relationship with the EU through our reset earlier this year. And yes, I do want a closer relationship than the one we've got at the moment. We are moving towards that. We do have manifesto commitments on issues such as single market, customs union and freedom of movement. But I would gently point this out, that having now done significant trade deals with other countries, including the US and India, which are hugely important to the JLR workforce and on pharma, it is not now sensible to unravel what is effectively the best deal with the US that any country has got.
Now, there are a couple of ways of looking at this. First of all, he's right that joining the customs union would render the India and US deals, which his government has worked hard on, largely defunct. However, he is wrong about two key points. The first is we don't have a US trade deal. We have an agreement on tariffs, which still means our trade with the US, though better than it would otherwise have been, is worse than it was at the start of 2025 before Trump started his bollocks. The second and most important error is that joining the customs union would be worth way more to the UK economy, way more, than the loss of the US tariff agreement and the India trade deal. So economically, Starmer's answer isn't good enough. But if viewed as a political answer, it may give us insights. If we join the customs union, we gain more than we lose by throwing Trump's tariff deal in the bin. It may even be that the individual companies like JLR gain more than they lose, although I don't know that. But the UK economy as a whole definitely wins bigly. However, if we join the customs union, the consequences are not necessarily just having to drop the India trade deal, which hasn't even come into force yet, and the US tariff agreement, which, despite Starmer's praise for it, is merely damage limitation. Starmer may fear excessively punitive action from Trump for the perceived betrayal. Remember, Trump and his government are actively trying to weaken the EU. Us joining a bit of it isn't going to be well received. It could mean immediate and harsh economic sanctions, which would hit before the benefits of the customs union could possibly be felt. And remember, if we began negotiations for the customs union, we cannot know how long it would take. It might be quick and easy, it may not. That would surely end Starmer's premiership in a way that Ed Davey was relating to, far more surely than delivering the growth or failing to deliver the growth a customs union would provide. It may also be that we lose a supportive voice for Ukraine that has actually worked out reasonably well. In other words, there could be a fear, and it could be a well-placed fear, that the fringe consequences of joining a customs union now may well not be worth the benefits if you factor everything in. I don't know if Trump would rain fire and fury on us if we join the customs union, but I cannot confidently say that he would not. And if he did, yeah, I think that would finish Starmer off. And Starmer is likely to have a better idea of how the orange one would react. But remember something, come the next general election, Trump's term will have ended. Now, there is a good chance that MAGA remains in charge, and there are numerous pathways to which that can happen that we don't need to go over now. But there is also a pathway for a Democratic president to be installed and a transfer of power, peaceful or otherwise, and Labour will then be free to promise a customs union in the next manifesto. It will not then break any promises to do it. The promises in the manifesto from last year were just for this Parliament, and it could provide a useful banner to rally around to make the election about Brexit again, which actually could work in Labour's favour in 2029. But whatever the arguments for and against, it seems to me that Starmer's answer here had the ring of truth in it. He didn't attack the idea of a customs union. He didn't downplay the economic benefits. He denied none of the advantages it would give us. He pointed to the consequence of losing the US deal, which might well be what keeps Labour from going ahead now, but could allow the way to be cleared in 2029. What do you think? Let me know in the comments below. Please subscribe to the channel for more content. Click the bell notification icon so you know when new videos are coming out. Thanks for listening, and until next time, I'll see you later.